You ever hear the sound a sky makes when it's not quite thunder? I mean, the kind of sound that shakes in your chest, low and ancient, like the whole earth is groaning under something it's been carrying too long. That's what I remember most from that night. The hurricane no one in Willow Creek was really ready for, especially not the HOA, no matter how many rules they love to quote. We'd see on the news, sure, folks yapping about it, maybe glancing by our state, bringing some rain or a stiff wind. The local weather guy said, might as well keep an umbrella handy. Nobody expected the thing to turn on us, not like that. By the time the alerts jumped from watch to warning, it was too late for packing up and heading out. I'd lived in Willow Creek for 8 years at that point, a pretty little neighborhood where the lawns are clipped with military precision, mailboxes match like a row of toy soldiers, and the HOA rules are about as sacred as Sunday morning church. I bought in after I retired from the Army. Single dad, raising Maddie, my girl. I thought the orderliness would be good, something stable after a career of chaos. I figured strict rules meant safety, you know? I was wrong. That storm came rolling in like the sky was mad at us. Trees bending so low they just snapped, shingles flying off rooftops, fences giving up the ghost, power lines popping and spitting in the dark. I grabbed Maddie, and we huddled in the only place without windows, the hallway, her hand in mine, both of us quiet, just listening to the wind howl like it was hunting for something to break. Sounds like war, Dad, she whispered, trying to sound brave, but I could hear the shake in her voice. I squeezed her hand and said, you're not wrong. When morning came, Willow Creek looked like a war zone. No power, no water, roads blocked by downed oaks, folks wandering outside like they'd woken up on a different planet. That's when the HOA sent their first email. I still got it saved. All communal water services temporarily unavailable. Do not use private generators or unauthorized distribution systems, as it violates HOA Policy 7.3. That was it. No help, no bottled water, not even a hang in there. Just rules. But folks were hurting. I saw old Mr. Donnelly 3 doors down, hauling buckets from the muddy retention pond out back, shaking from the effort. Saw a young mom rinsing sippy cups with melted ice from her freezer. That night, after Maddie asked, Dad, can we do something? I remembered the backup tank I'd installed years ago after a buddy from my old unit told me, never trust the grid. Always keep your own water. That tank, sitting quiet in my garage, was clean and full. Maybe not enough for the whole block, but enough to share. I set up a folding table at the end of the drive, dragged out what jugs I had, and scribbled a sign. Free clean water. Take what you need. First day, just a trickle. Old neighbors with their eyes down, like they were sneaking out past curfew. You sure about this? Mr. Donnelly asked. Never been more sure. I told him. Pretty soon he was back. Jug for the neighbors who couldn't walk over. By day 3, there was a line. Kids, parents, old folks, veterans, everyone bringing whatever container they could find. I just filled them up. Maddie handed out crackers, and people cried, laughed, hugged us, said, they're doing what the HOA should have done. I felt something that night. Call it pride, or purpose, or maybe just finally being useful when it counted. But if you know anything about neighborhoods like mine, peace doesn't last. Not when Karen, our HOA president, gets wind of a rule being bent. She showed up day 4, red blouse, clipboard, frown you could have iron shirt on. Didn't even look at Maddie. Just stood at the end of my drive, arms crossed, eyes sharp as broken glass. This is unauthorized distribution. Violates HOA policy. She wanted it down. Said I'd get a formal violation. I just looked at her and said, no. She blinked like she'd never heard that word before, scribbled on her clipboard, and marched off. Maddie whispered, she's going to escalate. Yeah, she did. The next day, my driveway was more than a water station. It was the town square, folks bringing folding chairs, sharing stories, checking on each other. Maddie played Motown from her phone. Someone must have posted online, because soon enough we had strangers from the next neighborhood showing up, asking for water. I never turned anyone away. Army taught me, build a longer table, not a higher fence. And let me tell you, nothing will make you see the good in people faster than a crisis and a jug of cold water. That's when the real heat started. I found a first notice taped to my mailbox, plain, bold, Notice of violation. Cease and desist. Maddie found it before I did, hands shaking. I slid it in my pocket and told her not to worry, but I did. Not for the fines. They don't scare you after dodging mortars for 20 years, but because this meant they weren't asking anymore. They were declaring war. That night, while I checked my water reserves, my phone buzzed. Sheriff Hal Monroe, an old friend from my Army days, sent me a heads up. HOA is filing a complaint about illegal water distribution at your address. Watcher 6. Maddie read the text, looked up, and said, "Who knew being decent was criminal?" I needed that laugh. The next morning, Karen came back with her 2 board shadows, one with a folder, the other with a camera. Documenting violations, she said, snapping photos like she was collecting evidence for the FBI. I kept helping neighbors. She rattled off rules, threatened legal action. I told her, "You want to sue a guy giving away water during a disaster? Go ahead." She was gearing up for a showdown, and then, right on cue, the black SUV of the sheriff's department pulled up. Karen's face lit up like she'd just spotted the cavalry. But the cavalry was my friend Hal. He strolled over, took in the scene, and said, "Hi, Karen." She handed him her clipboard, rambling about bylaws and dangerous precedents. Hal looked at her, then at me, then at Maddie. He just grinned and said, "All good things." Karen lost her composure, demanded action. Hal shut her down, said, "My job's to protect people, not rules printed in Comic Sans." The neighbors laughed. Karen tried again, said I didn't have permits. Hal told her the county declared an emergency and her permits didn't matter. "You're not the government, Karen," he said. "You're a homeowner's board." She threatened fines. Hal told her to go ahead, and when I got the bill, he'd make sure it went where it belonged. The crowd cheered, and for the first time since the storm, I didn't feel alone. But I knew it wasn't over. Karen doesn't lose quietly. That afternoon, a note showed up under my door, handwritten, not typed. "Thank you for reminding us what community really means." I taped it next to my cardboard sign. The next morning, another envelope in the mailbox. 5 pages of violations, $1,250 in fines, 7 days to pay up, or else. Maddie looked at me and said, "This is war." She wasn't wrong. They weren't just trying to shut me down. They wanted to bury me in paper. But I wasn't backing down. Not with the neighborhood behind me. I found an old clause in the HOA rules, buried deep, said during a declared emergency, homeowners could act for community welfare as long as there was no profit. It was my ticket. Next day, when the police came, Karen called them in, I handed them the highlighted clause, the county emergency declaration, everything. The younger cop read it and said, "If he's within code, there's nothing we can do." Karen screeched, but the law was clear. That day, someone dropped off a sign that said, "Karen can't cancel compassion." Maddie laughed for 10 minutes straight. It didn't stop there. The HOA sent private legal threats, cease and desist letters, accusations of reputational harm for the videos Maddie posted of Karen melting down after getting her car ticketed for blocking a hydrant. That, by the way, was a scene, Karen yelling at a meter guy, him not giving a damn. The whole block in stitches. The legal letters got nastier. I sent everything to Mara, my attorney friend who lived for HOA fights. She wrote back. They handed us the matchbook. "Let's light it." She fired off a rebuttal citing federal law, the Stafford Act, and the HOA's own bylaws. The tide turned. I called a driveway meeting, invited everyone who'd signed the petition. People showed up with lemonade, cookies, stories. Someone shouted, "Let's vote." By the end of the night, we had a recall committee, Mr. Patel volunteering to hand out flyers, Mrs. Jameson, our oldest resident, offering her porch for petition signing. Even the teens wanted to help. What started as survival turned into organization, and then into rebellion. The HOA tried to fight back with scare flyers, black and white, all caps, "Do not be deceived." People just tore them down, replaced them with community over control, and compassion is not a violation. The recall petitions filled up. The local news showed up. Mrs. Jameson called the HOA a pack of barking dogs guarding a bowl of air on Channel 9. Karen disappeared. We held the recall vote in my driveway, folding tables, fans, sweet tea. Veterans, single parents, seniors, kids, all had something to say. Tired of being bullied, fined for garden gnomes, tired of seeing compassion treated like a crime. When it was over, the tally was 138 for the recall, 7 against. Karen and her crew were gone. That night, Maddie and I kept the water station open. Not because we needed to, the utilities were finally back, but because it had become a symbol, a place where folks came to talk, to remember how the whole thing started. Maddie made a new sign: clean water, clear conscience. Welcome home. Next morning, a man I'd never met stopped by, tired eyes, baby in one arm, jug in the other. He said, "I just came to say thank you for fighting for all of us." Maddie smiled, tears in her eyes. We hadn't just taken back our neighborhood. We'd reminded it how to be human. The new board formed. Fresh faces, open minds, folks who'd never had a say before. They sent out a survey. What do we want our HOA to be? The answers: fair, transparent, helpful, human. Words that meant something for once. The water station stayed up a while longer, became a pop-up library, then a picnic spot. Finally, when it was time, I packed it away, knowing the real work was done. Maddie cried, but it was a good cry. The HOA's lawyers never followed up. Maybe they realized the cameras were on them. Maybe they finally read their own rules. Or maybe Karen took her clipboard and vanished into whatever shadowy place HOA bullies go to plot their next crusade. The new board rewrote the rules. Emergency clauses, compassion exceptions, a response team for the next disaster. They asked me to lead it. I said yes, not to be in charge, but to serve. One evening, Maddie asked me, would any of this have happened if the storm hadn't come? I thought about it a long time and told her, storms don't just destroy things. Sometimes they clear the way for better things to grow. She nodded and went back to her sketchbook. "You were never just the water guy, Dad," she said. And I smiled because she was right. The water brought more than relief. It brought community. It brought courage. Last thing, I found a bottle of wine on my porch. No note, just a red ribbon tied around the neck. Same color as Karen's blazer. I tossed it straight in the trash. Because forgiveness is one thing, but forgetting? That's for people who never had to fight for what they love. In the end, we didn't just win against the HOA. We changed it, from punishment to protection, from surveillance to stewardship. All because one stubborn neighbor refused to shut off the tap. Now, let me ask you, where do you draw your line between rules and compassion? Would you have done the same? I'd love to hear your stories. Drop a comment, share your take on justice, right, wrong, or maybe just tell me where you're watching from. That's how real community starts, one story at a time.